Time to look at the most traded players in CBS Sports Leagues right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. It's Adam and Dave. Dave, I meant to tell you on the main show, it looks like you have the Raiders logo on your shirt.
It's actually the old NFL equipment logo on a windbreaker that I got a long time ago from a good friend.
It's a cool story. Not
really.
The most traded players. Top two are Davante Adams and Amari Cooper. Who would you rather have?
I'd rather have Adams because I don't think what we saw against Pittsburgh is going to be the norm other than the targets. He had 9 targets in that game. I think that's going to be the norm. The 3 catches, no, we're expecting more than that. I still think he's a number 1 fantasy receiver, but I do think Amari Cooper should be valued the same way. Think about what Cooper did against Tennessee and realize he didn't even play half the snaps. He barely played more than a third of the snaps for Buffalo. And once he gets his timing down with Josh Allen, he might see as many targets as Davante Adams. That's a good thing. So they're both low-end number 1 fantasy receivers. On the trade chart, they're both top 12 among receivers.
So the third guy on the list is very interesting, and it's Kareem Hunt. And, you know, I could see both trying to trade for Kareem Hunt and trying to trade away Kareem Hunt. I think, you know, the question is that I have is, will he continue to be very valuable while Pacheco is out? Because he's getting a lot of carries. He's not doing a ton with them, but he scored 3 touchdowns in 2 games. If he doesn't score those touchdowns and you're in a league that counts catches, well, then it's not really great, but it's pretty favorable. It's on paper, it's a good schedule coming up, but a lot of these teams that he plays are bad against pass catching running backs. Anywho, do you think Kareem Hunt will, at least while he's still the guy, will be a borderline must-start running back like he's been?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say, but that doesn't mean that he's not a really good sell-high candidate. There are going to be fantasy managers in every league that are desperate for running back help, and even if it means giving up a good player at receiver or tight end to get Kareem Hunt, they'll do it just so they've got Kareem Hunt on their squad. And maybe the move for a fantasy manager that needs that running back help is to trade as little as possible for both Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco to lock up what should be a decent Kansas City run game. Now, you said it. If he doesn't score, he's early season Najee, and that dude was not helpful at all for fantasy managers. So I do worry a lot about what that schedule could do to Kareem Hunt after this week. This week, awesome matchup. It's the Raiders. He should get enough work to have 100 yards and a touchdown. But after that, it's Tampa, it's Denver, it's Buffalo, and then the Chiefs in the fantasy playoffs have the toughest graded schedule in my fantasy strength of schedule rankings because they're taking on the Browns, Texans, Steelers, tough run defenses.
But that doesn't matter for Kareem Hunt because he's unlikely to be their guy in the playoffs, right?
All the more reason to try and trade him now if you don't need him or if you don't have Pacheco.
But if you are, and this was right, if you are the Pacheco manager, I think it makes sense to acquire him. And the thing about those tough run defenses that Kareem Hunt's going to face, like Denver and Tampa Bay soon, those are also probably really good game scripts for him. So you could certainly see him getting a lot of work and scoring, you know, in those games, I would think anyway.
Maybe.
All right, let's see who's next on the most traded list. It is Tyreek Hill. We're just expecting big things for him. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is 5th. And what are we expecting for him?
Well, what I'm expecting and what I'm hoping for are 2 very different things. What I expect from Marvin Harrison, unfortunately, is more of the same. Not as much target volume as we had anticipated before the year. And certainly Harrison's role not changing dramatically. But those are the 2 things that need to change for Harrison to go back to being one of these stud fantasy wide receivers that we love. We want to see him get 8+ targets a game. And we've seen the Cardinals not throw the ball as much as other teams around the league. That's something that's surprising us. I think it's because the Cardinals believe correctly that they can run the football. And so they're playing their game a lot differently than what we had anticipated before the season. And then we also anticipated that Marvin Harrison, that a majority of his targets wouldn't be downfield. He'd have a lot of targets inside of 12 yards, 10 yards, 8 yards, and just pick up on that volume. And that hasn't happened. His ADOT's a lot higher than we thought it would be. And the targets that he's been getting, not all of them, especially the downfield ones, have been accurate. And so there's a lot in play that's really slowing down Marvin Harrison from being that stud receiver that we took in the second round. Adam, he's not even a top 24 receiver on the trade chart.
I hate his upcoming schedule too. So, all right, we're not saying to go out and buy low on Marvin Harrison. Tank Bigsby is a pretty obvious screaming sell high candidate. Just 2 targets on the season. Travis Etienne probably coming back. Remember, Doug Peterson said after Tank Bigsby's previous good game, he said that was a good game by Tank, but Travis is still our guy. So they'll be splitting there.
I guess the only argument I would have to that is, what if the Jaguars just kind of realized after their win over New England, hey, look, we need this guy. He can give our offense the run dimension that we really need. We've got an offensive line that can play that physical brand of football, and we can just churn with the run game, and we can do it with Tank Bigsby. If they do that, and I'm not saying that they will, but if they do that, then you're basically giving away a number 2 fantasy running back, because you're not going to get a lot in trade for Bigsby.
Yeah, no, I get right. I think he will lead the team in carries when Etienne's back, but he won't have all of them. He won't have as many as he had against New England. The game script was just so good. We got to take a break.
Right. That's the whole thing, right?
We got to take a break, and we'll come back and finish up this discussion on the trade chart and the most traded players on Fantasy Football Today Express. All right, Bucky Irving is after Tank Bigsby as number 7 on the most traded list. And how are you valuing the Bucs running backs right now?
It's interesting to me because Irving and Bigsby are worth the same on the trade chart. And I think fantasy managers like that Bigsby is finding, or not Bigsby, that Irving is finding the end zone. They like that Bigsby is finding it too, but we're talking about the Bucs run game. But it's a 3-headed monster. And what we saw from the Bucs when they were trailing against Baltimore was about half the snaps went to Rachaad White. I think that's pretty predictable. And then the majority of the remaining reps did go to Bucky Irving, and he did play the most. I think he took all of their snaps inside the 10, if not the 5, against Baltimore, and he did okay. He scored with it, but he wasn't very efficient. So I wouldn't go crazy with Bucky Irving. I still think Rachaad White is reluctantly the best running back that is available to fantasy managers on that team.
I'm going to read some questions from the chat here, if we have any. Would you trade Worthy and Pittman for DJ Moore?
I think I would.
So I meant to bring this up on the show. We're thinking Caleb Williams has broken out. We like his upcoming schedule. DJ Moore he reminds me of George Pickens a little bit in that while Williams was struggling, there was a lot of production left on the field. Wide open play where he could have had a big play and Caleb missed him, that kind of stuff. That happened several times. I'm wondering if DJ Moore is about to just have a massive second half of the season. I don't love, Odunze and Keenan Allen can take targets away. DeAndre Swift can take targets away. They don't throw that much. They've thrown fewer than 30 passes in 3 straight games. But I'm liking the DJ Moore, Caleb Williams connection. Coming off a bye, people kind of, and coming off like a not so great game. Maybe now's
the
best time to get DJ Moore.
I would agree, but I also don't want to value him too much the other way, thinking that he can go and be let's call it like a top 18 fantasy receiver. I think he's a low-end number 2 fantasy receiver. I think that's a safe way to do it. I still expect him to lead the Bears in targets. As I've been saying since I watched them in mini camp in May, he is their best do-everything receiver. When they're in the red zone, he's an option. When they want to throw it deep, he's an option. When they want to keep it short and have a receiver make a play after the catch, he's an option. And not only is he an option in all 3 of those situations, he's their best option in all 3 of those situations. So I don't see that changing. 8 targets per game for DJ Moore. I don't think that's too outlandish, provided that he stays healthy.
Would you trade Tank Bigsby for George Pickens?
In a heartbeat. To get Pickens?
Would you trade Hopkins and Chuba Hubbard for Deebo Samuel?
Yes. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be that much elevated in Kansas City. I think he'll still see some decent targets per game and maybe be good for around 10 PPR points, but I don't think he transforms his game nor the Chiefs offense into something we haven't seen this year.
Would you trade Mooney and Jacobs for Tyreek Hill?
That feels like a lot for Tyreek Hill, but if Tyreek Hill is a top 3 fantasy receiver, you'll be happy with that. I don't hate that.
Yeah, if you told me Tua was playing the rest of the season, I would do it.
I would too. I might try and get a low-end running back with Tyreek.
Okay. Greedy. Dave is so greedy. All right, greed is good.
Make our team's good, of course.
Greed is good in fantasy football, unless you're the guy that makes bad trade offers and everybody hates you for it. But we'll talk to you tomorrow on Dave's not that guy on Fantasy Football Today Express. See you later.